Welcome to Unashamed, Unafraid, a show unashamed about sexual addiction recovery and unafraid of coming into Christ for healing, where we share real recovery stories, learn from experts, and share resources that actually work. So join us in being unashamed and unafraid.
Hey guys, welcome to Unashamed, Unafraid. If you are thinking about donating to help our cause, just wanted to encourage you to do so. We are looking for more donors right now. And don't forget to follow us at Unashamed, Unafraid. That's our handle there. We are here today, me and James, with Katie and Matt. How are you guys doing?
We're doing great.
Doing
Thanks.
good. Yeah.
Happy to be here.
So tell us a little bit about yourselves.
Do you want to say?
Yeah, you go for it.
Okay, yeah. So I'm Katie. Matt and I have been married. We've been married for almost 8 years this month, which is crazy.
Yep.
We have 2 boys. We have like a 5-year-old and a 4-year-old. I'm pregnant with our third. It's a girl this time, so we're excited. And we're originally
We have 2 boys. Did you say they were boys?
I said 2 boys. Yeah.
Well, we thought this next one was going to be a boy
Yeah.
too. We thought it was like 3 boys in a row. We were just like, man, this is going to get crazy. But turns out it's a girl. So
Yep. We're originally from Utah, both of us, but we moved to South Carolina about 2.5 years ago. So we live like on a hobby farm here.
Yeah.
We love the area that we're in, and yeah, that's a little bit about us.
Right on.
Sweet. So what brings you onto the show?
Good.
Well, I guess I bring us onto the show probably
Yep.
at the beginning of everything.
Yep.
That's how it goes. But we have been in our marriage. We've struggled with my pornography use and the
Okay.
effects of that. And I've struggled with pornography since I was like 10 years old, 10 or 11. And I brought that into our marriage, and we kind of dealt with that for the first few years. And as we worked on it, we have now become more vocal about like helping men recover and
Yeah.
helping women deal with the effects of like their spouse's pornography use. And Katie and I run a business together. Katie's kind of the face of it, where she helps women deal with betrayal trauma specifically. And so Katie's a coach. And so that's kind of our background and all of this stuff. And yeah, anyways.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, I'm thinking we should kind of hear the story. What do you
I
think?
kind of want to dig into that. You mind if we ask you a little bit about that, guys?
Of
I mean,
course.
we do Unashamed, Unafraid. We do like to hear people's stories of recovery and hope. So
course.
that's
You guys
where
are
we'd
just
like to
already
go
there.
today.
You can go home.
So I kind of want to start with Matt. Matt, I got
Yeah.
a lot of questions for you, but I just kind of want to hear what tell me about what it was like for you growing up and how you were exposed. What were some of the things that maybe led to addiction catching on for you?
Yeah, that's it's crazy because I've been thinking about this a lot with my boys because our oldest is 5 now, and I've just been thinking about like what this transition is going to be as he moves into like electronics and like the world, and stuff like that. But for me, it was just kind of like growing up in the era where we had just started getting like iPod touches. I don't even think iPhones were a thing really when it started for me, but iPhones became a thing, and just like no one knew what to do and like how to like help kids with that, I feel like. And so for me, it was getting my first iPod touch, having that just like access to the world, and not really knowing what I was like facing. And then all of a sudden you're in it, and you're finding pornography and different things online, and you don't know who to talk to or how, and you're like, oh, like let me stop doing it for a while, and then I'll tell someone like my parents or a church leader or something, and you never do, and it just kind of goes
Sure.
further and further.
So did you feel like when you were younger, there was very much talk about how to deal with this, or maybe some training on how to use you mentioned an iPod Touch, maybe in a safe way, or how to safeguard yourself? Did you have any conversations in your family like that, or was it kind of just given to you and you had to fend for yourself?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of a mix because we definitely talked about it with the parents, with like church people that there was like these dangers out there that pornography was something that we should, if we see it, we should tell someone. We had those conversations, but it's not always like, you don't always get in the details, or I definitely didn't get someone to go in the details with me and say, this is what it's going to be like, and this is how to talk to someone, and you're going to feel a lot of shame, and this is what it's going to be like. And so kind of on both sides of that, but mostly I would say no. And mostly it was just kind of me on my own. So
Wow. So as someone who identifies with that, Matt, I want to ask you some questions just about how you've been able to deal with that, because my own story is similar in that way, where I, I felt like there was really no training or maybe parental guidance on how to deal with this issue. And in my case, tech was kind of just taken from me, or highly lots of passwords and but I always found ways around, and so things caught on. How have you been able to uh, start to use technology in ways that is like benefiting you, and how have you transitioned out of that kind of like a, hey, I got blindsided this and I've had to learn this skill on my own? What's that been like for you?
yeah, well, it's kind of crazy because I got like, I guess, cleaned up a little bit in my late teenage years and went on a church mission for 2 years. And after returning home, what just happened is I got an iPhone again, and it was
Mhm.
just in my hand. I had like a Nokia brick phone for 2 years,
Right.
and then all of a sudden I have an iPhone, and there's just access, and you just fall into it. And so when I was working out of it, when I first started my recovery, Katie basically made my iPhone like a brick phone. You know
Uh-huh.
what I mean? And like we worked together on that, but like
Sure.
she had passwords and everything. And so I kind of went out of the tech, and now I'm just doing school and work, and that's all I do basically at that point. But then in the years since then, I have transitioned into using technology like in better ways. And I think the biggest thing for me is recognizing I've been thinking a lot about the fact that all of the problems that I feel like we face these days stem from like us inappropriately using dopamine and just like things trying to trigger our dopamine. And there's a lot of great books about this, but if you think about like overeating, pornography, just there's like so many of them. You know what I mean? Drugs, obviously, alcohol. Um, but for me it's just recognizing like where the dopamine is like coming from and like why I want it because it feels good. And so when I use technology now, I try to avoid things that are just sucking me in, pulling that dopamine, whether it's like scrolling through the news, scrolling through shorts, scrolling through reels, just using technology for like good things that aren't like pulling me in, and being able to put my phone down and say like, I'm not going to touch this. I'm going to hang out with my kids, go for a walk, go to the gym, whatever
Right.
it is. So I don't know if that answers your question,
Yeah, it
but
does. And I'm curious how you got to that point where you feel like, hey, I was blindsided by all of this. You talked about coming back from a mission and having, just suddenly, boom, I have the iPhone again. What was the healing that had to happen in your life for you to get to the point where you could start to do that in a way that was healing and helpful for you, rather than, what you experienced for the first part of your life? I assume there's been some healing that's happened.
yeah, definitely. And I will say that this is such an ongoing thing. The beautiful thing for me about recovery is it's your whole life, and it's your whole life of learning, growing closer to God, and connecting with other people as well. And so I feel like for me, it's just a daily and just frequent battle of recognizing where I've strayed and getting back on. And
Mm.
so I just feel like it comes down to like, where am I at, taking inventories and moving forward. And I went through like the 12-step program. I've been really involved in like the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints addiction recovery program. And what's beautiful about step 4 is you take an inventory of your entire life, right? And what I learned from that, it's amazing to do that and like go back in your life, but it's also like such a valuable thing to take in moving forward, where you can say, this is where I'm at. This is what I'm going through. And like, I feel like a month ago, I did this. I did an inventory, and I recognized that I was over investing in technology, and my phone was becoming something that was like controlling me. And it's just taking a step back and like learning the things I learned. I told Katie, I'm like, hey, my phone's been taking over my life. Like, help me step back from that and like check on me as I do that. And so it's just that inventory and connecting with yourself.
Love that.
So was when did you get married in this scenario, in all of this scenario? Because I'm like, what was it like? What was your relationship with pornography and technology pre Katie, post Katie? Like,
Yeah,
um,
totally.
so if you're not married here like Sam, and the guy's like, how can I kind of
Yeah,
manage
no,
my
I'm
tech?
here. I'm like, dude, tell me all the things. How did you recover? Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So
don't do what I did. But Katie and I, we actually met on our mission, and so we served near each other for about 6 months. She came home before me, and she was home for about a year, just dating and stuff. We came home, and we ended up connecting and dating, and we got engaged within 2 months of me getting home, and then married 2 months later. So it's just super fast. And like I was saying, during that time, I slipped right back into like my struggles with pornography. And so
Did she
when we
know
first
that?
started so when we first started dating, I told her that I had struggled with this before, but it was good, and it was true at that point. It was
Yeah.
good.
Well, so I like when we were dating, we were kind of talking about getting engaged. I knew vaguely that I should have this kind of conversation with him of like about pornography. Like, like growing up, I was like, oh, you should have that type of conversation. I didn't really know what to ask. I didn't really know what I was looking for. I wasn't very educated, right? So it was just very vague. Hey, have you struggled with porn? Okay, sounds good, right? And he's like, I went on my mission. I'm clean. I'm doing good now. So I get these answers from him, and in my mind, I'm like, phew, like I am so glad he's not struggling with porn. We'll never have to deal with that in our marriage. Like I'm so glad he's being honest with me, right? So
Yeah.
like, I totally had this idea
Yeah.
of like, oh, perfect. Like I found the perfect guy who does not have these struggles anymore. Like I hit the jackpot kind of thing. So we proceeded, we got married. And over like the next year, I was kind of like asking him questions like every few months or something like, hey, how you doing like with porn? Like, hey, you struggling at all? Like, is there anything you need to tell me? Right. Like, so I'm trying to be really supportive. I'm trying to be like a part of the conversation. But again, like I didn't have a lot of information or education about it. So he's just answering like, nope, I'm good. I'm good. And I'm like, great. Like that sounds good.
I'm
This is
guessing
awesome.
you weren't being honest.
I was not being
Yeah.
honest. That was something that until the last 5 years I have really struggled with in my life. I was definitely not honest with Katie.
Yep.
Wow.
And so it was the night before our first anniversary, actually. And I just had like a really specific prompting from the spirit that told me, like, hey, you need to ask Matt about pornography use. And it just like shocked me. I was like, why? Like, that's so weird. I usually don't get like really specific promptings like that. And I just felt so scared. I was like, shoot, like that's kind of serious. And so I kind of started asking him more specific questions. And like I felt like the spirit was kind of prompting me to know what to say or what to ask. And then he kind of started coming out and telling me like, yep, over the last year I've been lying to you, I've been looking at porn, I've been acting out, all of these things have been happening, and he's been dishonest about it that whole time.
So, Katie, just for me, I'm 25, I'm single, but I'm probably going to get married in the next 3 years. What were some things that you would have liked to have seen from Matt in that first year of marriage and before that you didn't see that really would have helped in your relationship? I think for me, that's a big area where I kind of want to know, how do I act as someone who's in recovery, and how can I make my relationships work?
Yeah, for sure. We're both very passionate about the fact that like you can have a struggle with pornography and have a successful and like connecting and intimate marriage. Like we don't believe like you have to be like 100% clean in order to have like a good relationship. And so for me, it was less about the porn, and I hear this from women all the time. Like it's less about the porn, it's more about the honesty. It's more about the intimacy and the vulnerability. And I've seen like in the work that I do with women, the more successful, like the relationships that are successful with this are the ones that are open and honest and vulnerable, and the ones that really struggle are when, the husband is not being honest with him or with his wife. So for me, like that's what I just would have really appreciated, is just that honesty and that vulnerability and the willingness to like work on it and talk about it together. Where I feel like I didn't really have a choice going forward, and I felt like very blindsided. And so yeah, so that would have been a really big thing for us. I feel like starting off to have had that honesty would have changed a lot of things for us, I feel like.
So you're saying like if we just kind of live unashamed,
Yes, sort of like that.
that
Yeah,
helps.
exactly.
Okay.
Yep, exactly.
All right.
Yep.
And unafraid too.
And unafraid.
And unafraid, right?
Yeah.
She didn't say that. But she meant
Oh,
it.
for
Yep.
sure. Yeah.
No, thanks, Katie. That's actually really helpful.
Yeah.
So you guys talked about this disclosure happened, and you were probably blindsided by that. Sounds like
Yeah.
it sounds like though God was in the details of this, and He was,
Yeah.
hey, you need to ask about this. Where did you guys go from there, and how did the healing start to take place?
Yeah. Well, so it was really interesting because after I found out, I did, I kind of did all the things, right? Like I'm monitoring his phones, like he kind of talked about his phone, his devices. I have the passwords. I'm like, okay, Matt, like we're gonna go talk to the bishop. We're gonna go to the ARP meetings. Like I'm kind of like managing the whole
So you
situation. And
just
in my
totally
mind,
took
I'm
over
like,
his recovery. Like, I got this.
exactly. Exactly. I'm just like, okay, you know what? Like this is a problem, but we've got this. I truly believed that it was something that we would like overcome within a matter of months. I have like my checklist and I'm like, if we do all these things, we won't have to think about this ever again. Right. Cause it's like obviously painful. I was like really devastated. I was really upset. I had a lot of fears coming up, my own insecurities. So really looking back now, I don't know that I would have known this then, but looking back, I was really just trying to manage his recovery and control that really. Because I was feeling so terrible, right? So that kind of happened for the next year.
And well,
right?
it's crazy too because and we see this a lot. Is like I did have sobriety for like 4 months after that, basically, where it was white knuckle and like it was just kind of like the cold turkey thing. But like you think it works and you're like, wow, this is like actually
Yeah.
working, and then you fall back into it.
So he kind of did start falling back into it, but he also was falling back into the lying as well. So for the next year after I found out the first time, he was lying again. We were going to the addiction recovery meetings. He was telling everyone he was 150 days sober. I was personally miserable because I was like dragging him through the recovery, right? But I'm like, at least he's 150 days sober, right? So like I thought it was working and I was like, we're good. And then a very similar experience happened again where I had a very clear impression that was like, Matt is lying to you.
Huh.
And I was like, are you serious? Like, not again. Like, I could not believe it. And so
And it was about a year after that first one, and this time
Yeah.
now Katie's pregnant.
I'm
with
pregnant
our first.
with our first son. It feels like the stakes are higher, right? So like I confront him. He tells me, yep, I've been lying to you for the last year. We're both completely devastated. I'm just like, oh my gosh, is this going to be our whole marriage? And I feel like that's really when the healing started taking place. Before it was more about just like kind of white knuckling and kind of like pushing ourselves, pulling him through it. I wouldn't say that was a really like healing time, but
It's a rock bottom.
it was our rock bottom
Yeah.
time. Yeah. And like the next time that it happened, that's when everything changed.
Well, yeah, that's like you turned into his mom for a year. Like,
Exactly.
super not
Exactly.
helpful, right?
So
Yep, I was his mom, and I was like, but I'm also like so supportive. Like, look at me go.
Right,
Like,
right.
right?
Well,
Feeling
it's
good.
an easy trap for the spouse to get caught into, right? So
Exactly.
you know what though, it's really easy to say like, oh, I would never do that, but I think it'd be helpful to understand why doesn't that work, Katie?
People
Love
do this
that
all the time.
question.
This is
Yeah.
and that response is super common.
Yeah. It's again like it's kind of like it's almost like this fight or flight, right? Where we see like these uncomfortable emotions, insecurities, feelings coming up for me that are so uncomfortable and so painful for me to deal with. It's the same reason he watches porn, right? He's like having a hard time dealing with his emotions. And so he's kind of turning to something to make him feel better. For me, I was having all these painful feelings I've never dealt with before. The only thing that feels like productive and the thing that makes me feel better is by avoiding that and thinking about Matt. And now I'm putting all of my energy, all of like, everything that I have into Matt to help him. My brain is telling me if he gets better, then I don't have to feel so terrible. So it's like a really natural response that everyone does, and I see so many women go through this same thing. Just that natural response of like, got to take charge of this in order for me to feel a certain way.
Wow. You see that in a lot of other women, you said?
Yeah, for sure. And again, it's like, it's really interesting because you kind of see similar patterns like with pornography use recovery, right?
Yeah.
I see a lot of similar patterns with women as they're kind of recovering or healing from betrayal and from hurt. And usually women will go through that phase of the control and like the dragging him through the recovery, and it works until it doesn't work anymore. And then you're just so miserable. You're so burnt out. you're so overwhelmed, and then you're just like, now what? Like, and then that's when you kind of start letting go of the control. And it's like, control is an illusion anyway, right? Like, we don't have control. We think we do, right? But when we kind of can accept that, and then we're like, okay, like, I'm going to start healing myself. That's all I can do. You kind of get to the point where you realize, like, it's not working to like heal him or like control him or manage him. Like, that's not even working anyway. So then you kind of just get to the point where you kind of turn it over to yourself, and you're turning it over to God and trusting in this process. And that's where the healing takes place.
Wow.
Yeah, so like take us kind of a little bit down that journey then, Matt. You basically had to own your own recovery at that point because you could no longer abdicate it to her, and she was no longer taking it out of your hands, it sounds like. So what was, Katie, one, what was that like to let go and start to work on yourself? And two, Matt, what was that like to have her let go and basically force you to look at yourself and take control of your own recovery? Kind of walk us down
Yeah,
those paths.
it was so freeing. It was like such a relief when I finally was able to get to the point where I could just let it go and trust in the Lord and like trust in myself and just know, like, no matter what happens, I'm going to be okay. Like, I started gathering tools and support and like resources for myself. And I was like, I've got this. Like, whatever's going on with him, like, yeah, it's painful, we're struggling, but like, I can get through it. And it was just such a freeing experience. It also just really helped me, or just really opened me up to my own insecurities and my own pain that I was like trying to avoid, by controlling him. And a lot of times I tell people, like, for me, and I think for both of us, it got worse before it got better.
Yeah.
Where I kind of let go, but like that brought up a lot of stuff. I started feeling a lot of shame internally, or I started feeling a lot of insecurities. And I'm like, whoa, like, what do I do with this? I thought it was going to get better. But when I kind of started actually healing those and looking at them, that's when the healing could start taking place for me.
Katie, I got to pause you right there. Like, I have got some clients and things that are like, they cannot get to that point where they just let go.
Yeah.
Just can't let
Yeah.
go. Like, can't not like know whether or not he's acting out, or can't like let him do the process. Like,
Yeah.
Katie, like, throw our ladies out there some love. Like, how help me let go? How can I do that?
Well, number one, it is so hard. And I understand where the ladies are at, if that's where they're feeling, right? It's really, really difficult. What I kind of tell my clients, like, there's kind of a logical aspect to it, right? Like, intellectually, you're like, yeah, like, I was just talking to someone this morning. She was like, my husband's lying to me. He's betraying me right now, but I'm scared if I let go, he's going to lie to me and betray me. Yeah. And I was like, hey, do you notice, like, even if you let go, like, it's still happening right now. He's betraying you. He's lying to you right now. If you let go, the same thing is going to happen, right? So like, there's kind of like this logical aspect where you're like, okay, control is an illusion. It didn't work. Like, you can kind of like reason with yourself. But I think more than anything is just that readiness and that willingness. And for me, I just really see it as not necessarily time, but you kind of just get to this point of desperation almost, kind of like I was saying with the porn. It's just, you kind of hit your rock bottom, and until someone is there, they're going to keep holding on. Right. So like, for me, like, I can't really force that in my clients, and I can't really like logic or reason with them. It's something that they come to in their own journey of healing, as they start experiencing that more and more.
Wow.
All right.
I'm curious, for those women who are wondering, is that actually worth it? How did you grow as a person after you made that decision?
I love that. Yes. Like I was saying, like, so much of me grew, and it is so worth it. Like, I feel like when I was like trying to control Matt and drag him into his recovery, like, part of me was like, okay, I'm being really supportive, right? But looking back, and like, if I was being honest with myself, I didn't like the person that I was. I didn't like the wife that I was becoming, and like the woman that I was. I was anxious all the time. I was stressed out. I wasn't trusting God. I wasn't trusting myself, right? Like, I didn't really like that person. It didn't feel good to be there. And as I kind of started to heal and like look towards myself instead of focusing on Matt, that's when I could become the wife and the mom and the woman that I wanted to become, because I was trusting myself. I was turning to God. I was like choosing to let go of like this anxiety and stress. And that's when I could let more like love and compassion and understanding in, because I was having love and compassion and understanding for myself. Before, like I didn't even have that for myself, and I couldn't be there for Matt. So not only did it like help me as a person, it helped us in our marriage too. And it helped us connect and get that true intimacy that I was really looking for.
All right, Matt, your turn, man. Okay, recovery's all yours. You got to own it. You got to, so to walk us down the journey, man.
Yeah, it's crazy because like from the spouse's perspective, you think that it's like your husband's fault, like everything that you're going through. And certainly like, I brought pornography into our marriage. But what Katie and I have found time after time after time is that the best way to get out of this thing is for two people to do it individually together. So like Katie to do her healing and me to do my healing, because Katie, what she's dealing with is not, it has nothing to do with my pornography use, and it has everything to do with her. And certainly like my pornography use brought it up. But like for Katie to heal from that, I don't need to heal. And for me to heal from my pornography use, Katie doesn't need to heal. But if we can both heal individually, then our marriage is going to grow. And so, anyways, after that happened, Katie kind of, I mean, she essentially was just like, I have pulled you through this and you're not doing anything. So like, it's on you. If you want to heal, you heal. If you don't. And it's a beautiful thing when a person has to face the consequences of their actions. And pretty much up until that point in my life, I just hadn't really. I had struggled with pornography. I had lied. I had done all these things. And I had just been a shell of a person going through my life. And that forced me for the first time in a long time to just face like the consequences of my actions. And there's no better way to learn, because when you have to face them, you feel all the things that you have to feel. You like guilt and all those things that come up, and they're powerful though if they motivate you to change. And so that was the time for me when I just realized that like I was lying to myself, I was lying to Katie, I was lying to God. But at this point, God wasn't letting that continue, because he was able to tell Katie and I couldn't continue lying. And so for me, that was the time when I just dug in and I started recovering for real. I got like a sponsor, I finished the 12 steps, and I just got to work. And what's amazing is it actually worked. And I found recovery after that. So,
Wow.
Yeah.
Dude, Matt, that's awesome. So can I ask you a personal question?
Yes.
So I'm kind of at a spot in my recovery where I've done some healing, and I'm stuck in a spot that you kind of described, where some change had to happen and you had to start facing yourself and have some courage. How can I mimic that in my life? I'm genuinely curious.
Yeah. I don't know. Can I ask you a personal question?
Yeah.
What have you done to this point in your recovery? Like what, you done coaching, you done 12-step programs, therapy, like where are you at with all that?
Yeah, so I've done 12-step. I've done therapy. I've actually honestly done most of it. What I'm finding is that I'm done a lot of recovery and I'm still not getting sober.
Yeah.
And what I think that there's a shift that has to happen, where it's just like you get off the train of like, hey, I'm going to be in recovery forever and do all the healing, and finally like something changes and the actions follow through. Where was that change for you? What does that look like?
I don't know, man. I don't have the best advice for you. I can only say what it was for me. And I went through a phase where it was just I just couldn't get out. And what happened for me was kind of realizing that like it is going to be really hard, probably the hardest thing that I've ever done. And I hate to say that because like it sounds depressing, but the beautiful thing is like we can do amazingly hard things. And I don't know what it's going to be in your situation, but for me it was just kind of realizing that like I can either like live this life where I'm continually doing something that I don't want to do, or I can decide that I'm going to do a really hard thing like one time, or just like get through it. And life is always hard. And the hard part about my situation right now is I'm kind of like you, where I had sobriety. I had 5 years of sobriety, and then I had 2 kind of slip ups in the last like 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got 4 months of sobriety under my belt right now,
Mm-hmm.
and it's hard to face that because I was at this phase where I was the 5 year sober guy. Like I was longer sobriety than anyone in my meetings, and I have like a really good friend, and he's actually my sponsor right now. And I don't even know how many days sober he is, because when I ask him, "What day are you on?" he goes, "Every day is day one for me."
Hmm.
And I literally don't know if it's day one or not, but he just approaches each day like it's day one. And I love the way he does that because he looks for the Lord's grace. He tries to do God's will. He works on himself. He improves. He acts like he like had a relapse yesterday. And what would I do today to change my life? And I think if you're living that way, it doesn't matter how many days like sober you are. It just matters like how you're going forward. So yeah.
Wow, that's great advice. Every day is day one.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, guys, as we're kind of wrapping this up, I kind of want to hear your thoughts. How did you guys involve God in this, and how has He guided you through this whole process in healing together?
Well, I think you heard like some of my obvious examples, right? Where I had those specific impressions about Matt lying. And again, like that doesn't really happen to me very often. So I really do feel like that was the Lord's hand in my life and in our life and kind of helping us in our marriage. But more than anything, at this has been such a difficult thing in our marriage over the last 8 years.
Yeah.
And as I've turned to the Lord, He's made it something that is powerful, and He's made it something that has helped us grow closer together. And I don't feel like I could have been able to do that on my own. You know, you kind of heard a little bit about my story. It was something that was really, really difficult for me. And everything inside my body and my brain is like wanting me to like push away from that, right? Like I need to get safe from this. Like I shouldn't trust him. Just feeling like threatened and scared and vulnerable, all those things. But the more that I turned to the Lord, the more He like strengthened me to turn to Matt and give Matt compassion and understanding during times, and then give myself compassion and understanding. And He's just like brought us closer through this whole thing, when I think it could have gone a very different way.
Yeah, I would just add on to that. I feel like God is masterfully in the details, and God speaks today, and it's amazing because we've been dealing with this for so long, and as we've kind of worked through our own recoveries, we like started leading 12-step meetings, facilitating them, sponsoring people, helping people, and we went through periods of doing that. And then when we moved to South Carolina, it's like there was no meetings here. I didn't really want to do an online meeting, and like I didn't know anyone here, so like I was just sponsoring people in Utah, and like that list was like getting smaller and smaller. And we were just like, what can we do to like help people? And
we even kind of decided to take a break. We were just like, we've been doing this for so long. Like we've been serving. We did a podcast. You know, we're like, hey, we moved here. Matt's sober. Like, let's just give it a rest for a little bit. We're kind of tired, you know.
And the time that I saw God in the details in that, and it's just like this all the time, I feel like, with God. But I was reading in the Book of Mormon, in the Book of Mosiah, about Alma the younger and the sons of Mosiah. And they were the vilest of sinners, is what it calls them. And they were going about destroying the church and like trying to destroy like the souls of men and like all these evil things. And what happened is they went through this amazing process where they turned their life over to God. They were restored to complete spiritual health. And then they went out and they helped other people to repent. They went on missions for the rest of their lives. And they were able to convert and save thousands of people. And it's interesting because I very clearly saw the way that God saw them in that moment. And I realized that Katie and I could do that same work that they were doing. I went from being, in my opinion, one of the vilest of sinners to someone who was transformed and changed through Jesus Christ. And I had a spiritual awakening, just like Alma the Younger, just like the sons of Mosiah. And we could go and do exactly what they did and bring souls to repentance. And I don't want to glorify like what we're doing, But
Because
I
you guys
really,
are, I mean, you guys
you guys are doing it too.
Like,
It's awesome.
It's just like the work, you
Yeah.
know?
But going
like,
out and helping people recover from this in any form, paid, unpaid, volunteer work, sponsors, anything, that is helping people repent and bringing them to heaven. And I had this like church leader visit my mission while I was there, and he said, well, "You're going to go to heaven, and when you get there, there's going to be an auditorium filled with people that you brought to like repentance, to salvation, and they're going to like thank you for like all you did." And I just feel like it's going to be the same way with recovery. And so anything any of us can do to help people recover or heal, that's bringing people to repentance, and I think that's an amazing thing.
So where can people find you guys? People in North Carolina, they're like, hey, I kind of want to get with these guys. Where can they find you?
Yeah, so right now I have an Instagram page. It's called the Christian Betrayal Coach. And I work with women all over the United States. So it's not just, here in the South, but that's mainly where you can find me. And I give lots of free resources and do lots of stuff on there.
Awesome. That's so cool. Thank you for sharing your story with us. I'm excited to get into the bonus content and ask you some more deep, detailed questions. Yeah. So just thank you so much for coming on.
You guys.
Yeah, thank you guys. Thanks for all you do.
Thank you.
So one thing we like to do, guys, at the end of our stories is I don't know if you guys have a song that's meaningful to you. We'll play that song at the end of the episode. Is there a song that sticks out in your mind that's a good representation of something important to you in recovery?
Do you have one?
Do you have one?
I don't have one, I don't think.
Oh, I don't even know what it's
Matt
called.
has one,
I
for
have one that I
sure.
do love so much. Let me see what it's called. This is.
I know you have one.
Do you know it's this one? Yeah, that song.
Yeah.
Have you guys ever heard the song "In Christ Alone"?
Bye.
Christian Stanfill.
I wouldn't.
In Christ Alone by Christian Stanfill.
It's like such
We're
a
getting
worship.
we're getting
song.
some head nods in here. Yep. I'm sure I've heard it. I listen to a lot of Christian music, so yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's a solid one.
Okay. Well, thanks for being on with us today. Really appreciate your thoughts, Katie and Matt. For those of you listening, if you want to donate to help us move this cause forward, visit our website, unashamedunafraid.com. Follow us on social media at unashamedunafraid. And until next time, don't forget to be unashamed.